new furnaces, total new roof, just everything.
So you basically build a new house on the old foundation.
And it's a lot of work to take out and restore. Oh my goodness. I was glad to get it done for her, and she's really happy. My mother had an old Majestic Range. Sorry, mayor's called a halt. We'll quit.
So hope everybody can hear me on my end. I noticed there were a number of people that were on quite early, so it looks like a fairly short agenda. And I gather that people want to see it concluded expeditiously tonight. So let's go ahead and get started. And I'm trying to juggle two computers here. All right, my name is John Drew. I'm Providence City Mayor. We have our city council members tonight, council members Speth, Kirk, Paulson, Seeley. I think we are missing Councilwoman Eck. I don't see her online. I have not heard from her. I assume she's going to be here tonight, and my guess is she was delayed. But on that note, let's go ahead and get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. And that's not a flag in the background. That's my wife's quilt. Somebody has a flag. I think Councilman Paulson does.
I took mine to my office a few weeks ago. I just turned around at my office down by the city building. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, there we go. That's even better. Look,
perfect. Somebody's on top of it here. All right. On that note, let's go ahead with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please follow me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This evening, if anyone would like to offer a thought for the day or a prayer, you're welcome to do so. Any of the council members, any of the city staff. I don't know if we have members of the audience. Anyone interested, wave your hand. I'll recognize you. If not, we'll just go forward.
I'll pray.
Go ahead, Carrie.
Our eternal Father in heaven, we bow our heads and express gratitude to live here in this free country, in this beautiful valley where we enjoy prosperity and such wonderful blessings. We're grateful to live in the city of Providence, where we have great leadership and where we enjoy freedom and so much opportunity. Heavenly Father, we pray that as we meet as a council tonight, that we can counsel together, that we can be wise in the decisions that we make, that we can speak with kindness, and that we can be efficient with our time. Heavenly Father, we pray that we might understand the information that's presented to us, and that we'll make decisions that are in the best interest of the residents of Providence, and that they will understand our desire to do good and to bless their lives. We pray for thy spirit to be with us and to watch over us. And this prayer we offer in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Carrie. Very inspiring. Let's go ahead with staff reports. We'll have our Public Works Director, Admin Services Director, City Manager. I don't know if we have our City Engineer or City Attorney with us. Rob, you want to go ahead and give us your update, please?
Sure. Hello, Council.
I love your safari camp.
I like my tent.
What's that mountain behind you, Rob?
I haven't quite figured that one out. I think it's my mountain.
He's hiking it tomorrow. He'll find out what it's called.
It's my mountain.
To the top, there'll be a sign up there.
Public Works is doing well as far as keeping up on our duties. Winter preparations are all pretty much complete, so as complete as you can be when you're preparing to hammer down on winter. Personally, I'll never shiver very well, but that's just me. We do have a entry-level streets position that's currently being advertised. That we have a slot is about to be vacated. So if you know anybody, don't hesitate to send them our way or encourage them to apply. And we're still on track with the budget. And other than that, I don't have much else to report. All's well. Any questions?
Any questions for Rob?
Thank you for picking up our leaves.
You bet. I actually am glad to do that particular service because that service helps everybody in so many different ways that we take care of that as best we can.
Is the bag cleanup finished?
No, we're still collecting and they're still showing up. It's the cold
Is there
that we got
a cutoff date?
froze a lot of the leaves to the trees, and so we kind of had a delay there. But the wind last night definitely accumulated a bunch more bags that we picked up today. So we're still getting them as long as the snow holds out.
Is that the cutoff when the snow flies? Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Once they get so buried that there's not very many that justifies us driving around looking for them, and they get real heavy when they're wet leaves / buried under inches of snow.
Okay.
And usually we've kept up on them pretty good that there's not a lot of those problems anyhow.
Thank you.
Hey, Rob, you guys
Yes.
dump those in the big dumpsters, the bins?
No, we haul them to the landfill.
In bags? Do you have to break the bags open?
Sometimes. Right now, we haven't been having to. It seems to kind of come and go throughout this every year. Some years we have to cut them all open the whole time. Others, they say, don't worry about it and let us just dump and drive away. And sometimes in the middle of the season while we're bringing them, they'll ask us to start cutting them open. But so far, for the most part, we're able to just dump and go this year. So.
Okay. Any more questions for Rob, our Public Works Director? Hearing none, let's go on to Scarlett, our Admin Services Director. Scarlett?
So we have new key cards in the city. We've had the city office rekeyed, and we're having the public works and the parks and the water facilities all rekeyed, and that is finishing up. So if you happen to, I don't think anybody has a key fob, but if you do, it will no longer work. So you need to get a hold of me and we can get you new keys. We also had advertised the annexation, the Furman annexation, Furman Low annexation down on 300 South Highway 165. The protest period ended Monday. I contacted the county Tuesday morning. There were no protests filed, so we will get the public hearing notice taken care of, and you will hear that. You can hold the public hearing on December 16th. Doesn't mean you have to make your decision that night, but the next step is to hold that public hearing. In the meantime, we'll put together the annexation agreement and have all of that ready for you for the 16th. Right now is the time that we're working on our report for House Bill 34. It's where we update and let the state know how well we've done as far as achieving some of our goals towards moderate income housing. That is due on the 1st of December. So we will have that done. And it's time for any of you that may have home businesses or even commercial businesses. It's time for the business licenses to be renewed. And just a quick reminder to everybody, the dog license renewal starts December 1st for those of you that have cute pups around. So that's pretty much we are planning for our Christmas tree lighting, and we hope that we'll be able to do it with COVID. We hope that the restrictions are such that we can still do it. We're selling or not selling. We have ornaments for people to come in and make a donation. That donation is going to go to the family place Carrie Kirk is working with the youth council to get us a box to have people that want to contribute to the food pantry. We always do an annual food pantry box here in the city office during Christmas time. So we will be doing that right now. And we're just hoping that we'll be able to do that tree lighting live. But if we can't, we'll do it live stream on Facebook or something of that nature so that we can still let people know that we're thinking about them and in the holiday spirit. So that's pretty much all I have, unless you have, and development is still moving along very strong. So we're staying busy. If
Thank
you have
you.
questions,
Scarlett, I was just gonna say, it's nice to see you on video. We've missed seeing your face, so thanks for doing that today.
you're welcome.
Any questions for Scarlett? Hearing none, let's move on to Ryan, our city manager. Ryan, what have you got for us?
Yeah, we have received 2 business applications for the CARES grant. So we received 2 of those, and we've got the checks, and so we'll distribute those out. So that process is working. We've got people that know that our grant applications out there and how it is. Any other businesses that are out there that are in need of that, we encourage them to apply for that. Just to update where we are in the master plans, we have the Parks, Trail and Recreation that's on track. It was presented to Planning Commission last week, and they will open it up for public comment through the next couple of weeks, and then it will come back to the council probably in January for adoption. So it's making good progress, and if you have any questions or want to review that, if you haven't, you should all be getting an email regularly to what the minutes are and how the steering committee is working on that one. So hopefully everybody has been involved and been able to give some good input on that. I think it's really coming together. Our transportation master plan is still in draft. We've had a first draft. We've made some comments from the staff, and we've got some from some others, and we've submitted those comments back to the consultant, and we're just waiting to hear the new update, and we'll get that out to you as soon as we can. They did present to Planning Commission last week, and so we are working for it, hoping for January, but it may be a little later than that, depending on whether we can get all the things wrapped up in it. So the sewer master plan, we are working on the first draft. Most of the data collection has been received, and so we've had our first meeting. We're starting to meet every other week to keep that project on task, and I think it will go really well. And then our fiber technical advisory committee has been meeting each week. At this point, we have first drafts of the contracts. We have first drafts of a memorandum of understanding, a construction agreement, and a operating agreement. So those 3 agreements. The other agreement that we would have is an ISP agreement. So ultimately, we'll have those 4 agreements flushed out. At this point, we have received comments from that technical advisory committee, some comments from our city attorney, and some comments from Zions Bank and the bond council. So we're working through all of those different avenues, and then we'll bring that back to the council and when we've got some of those things worked out, so that you can take a look and review and decide what you want to do on that one. So anyway, things are making progress. We'll probably see those contracts, I would guess, come back to you in December's meeting. So keep an eye out. We'll send those out to you as we get there. Our financial audit's complete. It'll be presented tonight. We appreciate their work. This is a new firm for the city, but as we talked about when we selected them, I have had previous experience with them, and so we are working with Spring Creek Water on the change application. Just to give you a little bit of an update there, We are working through amounts to include in that agreement. It looks like we will either our attorney or their attorney will modify the current city application to match. So it's their name on the top, it's joint application. We hope to be able to get that. Doing it, modifying the one we have at that point helps the process move along faster is what I'm being told. So anyway, I think there's progress. We're excited to move that. The agreement was helpful at the last council meeting, and I think we're progressing. Just to give an update, the 100 South project was presented to the COG. We haven't gotten a official meeting for them to approve the recommendations. It has been scored, and I think Mayor will probably talk on this, but I think the scoring and the and that meeting probably happens this next week. So another thing, we did have a company come in and cut a lot of our trip hazards in our downtown area. A lot of the large trip hazards have been fixed. And we did have a couple of streets that we went in and had them do a bit more of the little trip hazards. So we're seeing how that works, and hopefully that helps just before winter. So those big trip hazards have been fixed, and so that'll be good for the winter. Anyway, and then we did have the county contact us and just have some discussions with them about what we do as far as planning and working to see what the library does and what we do future wise. So we have had a couple of discussions there, and I'll get with Janelle. I think Janelle's on the library board. We'll get together to visit those. But anyway, so we're looking at a number of things, and that's the report I have. So any questions?
Questions for Ryan?
Nope, that's a lot of stuff. Good work.
We've got a good staff.
And there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff going on. And the master plans, between the city staff, myself, Ryan, Scarlett, we're doing a really deep dive on this stuff. The fiber as well. Any more questions for Ryan? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to approval of the minutes of October 21st. I need a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of October 21st, 2020.
Motion from Council Member Seeley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilwoman Kirk. Discussion, comments, additions, changes, corrections.
Mayor, I'd like to make a comment. I'd like to ask Josh if he would, what's your status on owning water shares in Spring Creek?
We purchased Amy's mom's home and with those shares with Spring Creek, but we have not filed the paperwork with Cheryl Ames yet. She told me we need to file some stuff with her, but I've spoken with Cheryl already about that.
Yeah, because the minutes said that you owned the shares, and right now that still hasn't been transferred to you.
It just hasn't been recorded. Yeah, and I'm happy if you want to annotate that in the minutes, that's fine. But
it just kind of gives well, it's just not quite correct.
Well, what should it say? What's the correct wording?
As a potential owner.
Pending owner. How about that?
Pending owner.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to call for a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes of October 21st, October council meeting, signify by saying aye.
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 Nay?
Aye.
Okay. All right, passes unanimously. Let's move on. So we've covered approval of the minutes. Next is public comment. Citizens may express their views to the city council on issues within the city's jurisdiction. Public comments may be sent to providencecityutah@gmail.com or text comments to 435-752-9441. City council may act on an item if it arose subsequent to the posting of this agenda and the city council determines that an emergency exists. Scarlett, do we have any comments? Any emails received?
Nope, I got it pulled up right now and we have not received any comments or emails regarding tonight's meeting.
Okay, got it. Okay, that makes things go faster. All right, seeing that there are no public comments, let's move on. We have a public hearing, which is scheduled for 6:15, and we are past that, so we're good to go. A proposed partial street and public utility easement. Purpose of the public hearing is to provide an opportunity for anyone interested to comment on a proposal to vacate a side street stubbed out from Spring Creek Parkway and approximately 400 north in Providence, Utah, and 3 public utility easements in the same general area. Persons wishing to comment may email their comments to providencecityutah@gmail.com or text comments to 435-752-9441. So we're opening the public hearing on the partial street public utility easement. We have an agenda item for the council to consider. Scarlett, do we have any comments for the public hearing?
Nope, we do not. Unless Ryan has some on the chat, we do not have any via email or text.
Okay.
Mayor, I do have attendees representing the applicant if we want to hear from them.
Okay.
I believe we have Paul G, Steve, and Steve Earl. I think those are the attendees that are representing the applicant. Any of them that raise their hand, we could hear from them if they wanted, or know which one wants to speak. So if you want to take that, they are there.
Are they on Zoom, Ryan?
They are on Zoom. That's correct.
All right. Council,
I have one that's raised their hand if you want to take them. So
sure. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
okay, yep, there you go.
Sorry, this is Steve Earl.
Hi, Steve.
How are you?
We're good.
Good. Yes, we've submitted this application. It's in collaboration with the Shoreline Estate subdivision, which has already been approved with conditions on the preliminary plat from the Planning Commission. And so one of the conditions being that we are asking for this partial street vacation on 400 North on the west side of Spring Creek Parkway. And the main reason we are asking for that is if you physically go to the site, look where that road is stubbed out, it's about 30 to 50 feet in the air above the ground to the west of it. And we just don't feel like it's technically feasible to make that connection. And so in lieu of that, we're proposing that that 650 East Street just to the west of there be made as the connection to Sherwood Drive to the south, which the city has on the road master plan. And then in addition to that, we are asking for a couple of small utility easement vacations, one being on each side of that little stub road. And then also directly across the street to the east, there is a stormwater detention pond right there, which has a easement recorded on it. And we are proposing as part of the subdivision to move that detention pond across the street to the north, where we're showing proposed lot 24. And that detention pond would get moved across the street there such that we have buildable area on lot 63. Because right now lot 63 could be built on, but it'd be extremely difficult. And so we're proposing to move that detention pond across the street and relocate it basically.
Okay. Council, any questions for Steve? Okay, when we get to this as a legislative item, we can discuss it further as well, but right now this is a public hearing. Scarlett, do we have any members of the public that wanted to comment?
No, we've not received any comments in the last few minutes.
All right, hearing that there are no public comments to be heard this evening, let's close the public hearing. And we will move on. We have one legislative item. We have one presentation. We have administrative items, 3 administrative items. So that's the balance of our agenda. So let's go on to the first item. Item number 1, proposal to vacate a partial street and public utility easement. That's what we just discussed during the public hearing. The Providence City Council will consider for adoption an ordinance vacating a side street stubbed out from Spring Creek Parkway at approximately 400 North in Providence, Utah, and 3 utility easements in the same general area. I need a motion on this agenda item. Council members.
I'll make a motion that we approve item number 1, the vacation of the street and utility easement ordinance number 2020-012.
Motion from Councilwoman Eck. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Councilman Paulson. Okay, discussion. Scarlett, Ryan, who wants to give us an overview on this?
They've followed the procedures to vacate a street. The Planning Commission has looked at it, and as Steve reported earlier, they approved the preliminary plat showing the street vacated, but they did approve it with the condition that the council does need to do that. That doesn't mean that you have to. If you choose not to, then the developer will have to go back to the drawing board and we'll have to change some things around. But the Planning Commission has seen the preliminary plat showing that this street would be vacated. The stormwater facility, Rob might want to chime in on that a little bit, but it can be relocated across the street as shown. And to the best of my knowledge, there are not any active utilities in those easements at this point in time.
There is some active utilities there, but the construction drawings with their preliminary plat kind of reflect abandoning those properly and dealing with them in a couple of different forms. But as far as relocating that pond, it is a fairly easy fixable situation in the design that they're proposing.
So Rob, I have a question. So we're
Okay.
being asked to consider vacating the public utility easements. And included in that, I assume, is this retention pond.
Correct?
Okay. Does that also, what we're voting on, include an agreement from the developer to relocate the pond across the street? Is that part of this, what we're voting on? Is that part of what we're asking to be considered tonight?
Correct. If they relocate, they won't just remove the pond without having a place for that current water to go. Steve,
So
you're welcome.
is part of what we're voting on also obligate them to if they're going to vacate the retention pond, are they obligated to locate it across the street? Or are we just saying we'll allow them to vacate?
So, Mayor,
Yep.
this would be the vacating of that. The preliminary plat would be where it would be recording that would be the new location. So it is anticipated that would happen if you did this. If you don't approve it, then they have to redesign preliminary plat, because those are conditions on preliminary plat, I believe. Scarlett can correct me if that's not correct.
That's right. And on line 39 of page 1 of the proposed ordinance. It says that the petitioner would like to relocate the utility easement number 3 to an area that better serves the proposed development. So they're going to relocate it. If you want to, instead of say would like, if you want to change that to the petitioner will relocate the utility easement, that would be fine.
So if I hear correctly from Rob, is we have to have a retention basin in that location. So I think the agreement should say will rather than making it sound like it's not, it's something other than mandatory.
I agree with that thought.
Okay. Council, any questions?
I have one, Mayor.
Yes.
Rob, in that area, have there, undoubtedly, there's some water valves that were put in. There's probably a sewer manhole in vacating that on the Spring Creek Parkway. Are you just going to leave those dead underneath Spring Creek Parkway? Are you going to have them do something with those valves and stuff so that it isn't a potential leak problem? What's going to happen there?
There's a couple of things that could happen, and it's to be discussed with the design engineer and our engineer as to how best to handle all the different utilities. Because both sides of that road have water, sewer, and stormwater stubbed out of the intersection going each direction. So vacating it will just mean that we need to make sure that the utilities that are stubbed are properly permanently abandoned within our right of way. So we're not going to abandon or vacate all of the utility easement. There will still be a 10-foot utility easement on each side of the sidewalk. So which is where the valves currently are. So they might actually utilize the water main for 2 of the lots, or maybe even 3 of the lots. It's still under debate, I guess is one way to put it, on whether to utilize the water main for those lots that are proposed and use that stub and leave the valve alone. But as far as sewer goes, it will need to be capped off, undoubtedly in our right of way and not in private property, along with the storm drain as well.
And what about the other utility companies? I haven't seen any signatures, and the petition for vacating said all utility providers would need to have signed off on this. Has that happened? Is there anything that at that intersection that has turned and followed the road stub out into those properties?
No, there's only power at this time is the only other utility that runs up and down the road. And the power is going to not get relocated or end up outside of the 10-foot scenario along the edge of the street, the 10-foot utility easement that runs along the sidewalk. So it won't have to be relocated or the easement changed in any way to leave that utility alone, and it'll be in good shape.
Sorry, I got one more question. When Ryan put up I guess it was a concept plan of what they were going to do with this subdivision, there was a number of double frontage lots. Is that permitted in the ordinance now? Can you help me with that?
Yeah, double frontage lots are discouraged, I think is a better term in our code. There's definite needs and situations for double fronted lots to be allowed. And in some of this particular subdivision's concept phase, it makes a lot of sense to have double fronted lots to discourage a lot of frontages on our corridor roads. And so for utilities and access and garbage cans and all those kinds of things, the more double frontage we have on this scenario, it'll be in the benefit of the city. And not all situations are that at all, but this one happens to be kind of unique that way.
Okay, any more questions for Rob?
Mayor, I have a question.
Sure.
Who are they going to be responsible, the developer, for improving that road and turning it into a usable sidewalk where the road is changed?
Correct. Yes, they'll have to redo the cross drain, the ADA ramps, all that'll go away, and they'll have to redo the road, the curb, and the sidewalk to make it continuous all the way on through.
Thanks. I have a couple of concerns about the way this is done. I agree with the idea that we don't want to put a lot of driveways out onto Spring Creek Parkway. Around that corner, I know that there's been some appeals made and people have been able to put their driveways out onto that road. But what kind of city ordinances do we have for the back? I just think that if people are pulling out onto the other side of that double frontaged lot, the back side of the road, people put up a fence and they don't see it, and then it just turns into like a weedy junk mess. Do we have ordinances that protect against that? Does that make sense what my concern is? I've seen that in other places where I've lived, and where all the backyard fences back up onto the road and it just turns, it's a mess. It's not maintained.
We do have a pretty elaborate fence ordinance. In this situation where there's so much slope, the concern that you're referring to as far as being able to see into people's backyards is pretty much inevitable, because you're really going to just see a really, really steep slope, at least on the north side. The west side's a little bit different, but there's not very many that are double fronted on the south side. And we do have some fence ordinances as far as clear view ordinance goes and transparency goes. And so
I'm not worried about seeing people's yards. I'm worrying about they put up a privacy fence to that back street, Spring Creek Parkway, and then they don't maintain the park strip.
Yeah. So one place that I was really worried about that, and it's not even in our own city, it's over in River Heights. They do it over in that Saddle Rock subdivision. And they've actually surprised me of how nice it does look. But you're right, Janelle. I can see where that could be a problem, where people would just put their fence right up there and then forget about maintaining, or even the sidewalk. You're supposed to shovel the sidewalk. Who's in charge of the sidewalk in the back of someone's property?
They're responsible for the sidewalks on all sides, all adjacent sides of their property.
Janelle, in your opinion, boy, this seems a bit like a catch-22 to me, because I can see the benefits and the disadvantages to both of these. In your opinion, with the curviness and grade and stuff of that road, is having more driveways enter on there, does that create a safety hazard at all, or do you feel like
there's a visibility issue if it's at a higher speed? Yeah. I think because of the curves.
I just bring that up because I think Carrie would admit in our neighborhood, what the road that we have going up 10th all the way up to the top of the canyon, that's what we have now. Is those are all driveway to that busy road, and boy, I wish it wasn't that way. All the parking and stuff that we get on there, and the blind corners and things.
I think this is unique in the fact that it is so steep. I blame it on the subdivision up above. I don't like the design of it. I don't think it's proved. It's not a good design and never has been. So I'm in favor of moving forward with letting them do this because it's so steep and
unique.
I know where the road stubs, it is steep. That's a steep drop off to the west, but I still do think that there's concerns about, I mean, if they put up a fence, they're not going, I mean, I walk that road pretty much every day, and currently the weeds are like unpassable. They just encroach on both sides of the sidewalk. It won't be maintained. And if that road goes clear all the way up to the middle of Little Baldy, as it's proposed on the master plan, no one will plow the back of their lot. I can almost guarantee that people aren't going to go clear around unless they put a gate through their fence. I don't think that there's going to be, I don't think that sidewalk will be maintained.
Can you ticket someone, Rob, or warn them? Don't do that if they're not maintaining their sidewalks.
Yeah, it is an ordinance that we've enforced. It's a difficult one, but we definitely have that capability.
It's in our park strip ordinance. Our park strip ordinance talks about what they have to do as far as the park strip and then the sidewalks and the maintenance, what they can plant, all that type of stuff. So it can be enforced through ordinance.
So I just want to clarify, because we're addressing these, you know, vacating easements. Is the consequence of that then this double frontage road that we talked about, that's going to ensue because of I'm just not necessarily seeing the connection here. Maybe someone who's understands this better can explain it to me.
So instead of connecting the road through, they're going to put a lot where the road stubs.
Sure.
And I think there would still be double frontage lots.
Mhm.
I mean, there is that cul-de-sac, but I think it also puts a lot of traffic down onto Sarah Street. It sort of forces that there's a stop sign at the bottom of the hill, I think. If you're going to have all of that continuous traffic flowing down that street from those cul-de-sacs down to Sarah Street and then head out into, you know, Providence Hollow Phase 1.
So the only thing the reason I think I've had a hard time visualizing this is the packet that we got with the application does not have those complete plats on it. You know, it doesn't have the lots, everything else. It just has the vacated easements. But the one that was just shown to us a few minutes ago, I thought was a little more informative. All the plats were there and we could kind of visualize it a little bit better. Do you have that there, Ryan, again? That we can.
I do. Let me show that one thing. Just Mayor, in case you want to recognize, Steve does have his hand raised in the chat, just so that you're aware. But I will put that back on.
By the way, just want to mention, we have an agenda item that has to do with vacating a public utility easement. I think the discussion that Councilwoman Eck brought up is a worthwhile having that discussion. We do put something in the newsletter, the whole thing about maintaining sidewalks in the winter and keeping them shoveled and all of that. And also about, there's a nuisance ordinance. You know, we frequently put something in there about keeping your weeds cut and all this and that. And we do send notices out to property owners periodically. We also have one of our staff members who goes and knocks on doors. But that's a discussion that's separate from this utility easement discussion. If the council members want to have this on the agenda for discussion, which I think, like I said, would be a healthy one, we can certainly do that for December's council meeting, anticipating a snowy winter season. Okay. Okay. Ryan's got this pulled up again. Josh, you had a comment. You wanted to.
Well, this is just easier for me to visualize what we're referring to here. So as I understand this road on this left, this as I can read, 650 is going to end up turning around. Is that right? Into, sorry, I keep trying to scroll my screen. I can't do that. Is going to kind of, that easement's going to be vacated. And it's going to join that other road up there to the right, where there's that double frontage. Is that the idea? Ryan?
This one here coming out and up, it will connect here.
Connect
that's
there.
That's not drawn here because I can't zoom out and scroll that either.
Okay.
But it comes over and up. But I did get some questions. That's why I brought this up. There wasn't in the packet. I had a couple of questions from members of the council that said, hey, where is it at? So I thought that this would be helpful, so that
yes,
just to try to be prepared to show you how it links into the other spots, and what the future design kind of was looking like. That we have subdivision proposed over here and it's coming, but then again, when we have actual design and preliminary design, we're going to see more specific, but this is just kind of outlining the general concept of things.
And the double
Thanks.
frontage lots are actually on the other side of where we're vacating. Ryan, if you'll just move your cursor a little bit to the right, that's where the there we go.
Yes, that's what I
And,
thought.
and
Were
so
those?
whether you vacate this little stub or not has no impact on those
That's
lots.
okay. That was my question right there. Is, I mean, we vacate that, that preliminary plat's already been approved with double frontage. We can't do anything about that, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, is that really true? If the road continues across, I try and move my cursor and can't either. But for 400,
Sorry, I'll move it where you want me to tell. I can zoom in or out if you just tell me what you want and I'll do whatever.
well, 400 North Street connecting to the part we're vacating. So coming from here, 400 North Street in that subdivision, which is Providence Hollow Phase 2, it's 400 North Street. And it's going to go, it was, I guess, intended to go over and connect to that stub that we're trying to vacate. Now, it looks like to me, they have gone around and proposed to put in a cul-de-sac there. And then we get a bunch of double frontage lots, also new ones planned, as well as what we've got on the other side. So it seems like to me that I guess they're trying to maximize the lots and give us a lot of double frontage lots. I don't know. Am I wrong?
The issue with the double frontage on Spring Creek Parkway is we've interpreted Spring Creek Parkway as a limited access. That's why we had the
Appeal.
Swan appeal, right? And so trying to keep Spring Creek Parkway as limited access, that's where we're getting double frontage on this side. We can't, because of slope, they can't be double frontage on this side, or they can't be served from a different road because they're just different levels. So really the question comes is, if we didn't vacate this, is there a way that this could reach that road? That's really the question of this agenda is, can this reach this road somehow? And is that what you would like to make sure they go back and redesign? Because if you don't vacate this, then that leaves a road stub out that we would hope would somehow connect to 650 or 400.
Can I ask a question about some of these lots and the ordinances that we have? The ones on the west side, that kind of back into that west cul-de-sac, you know, I don't know if it makes sense. I can't see the numbers, but those will clearly have to have driveway access on Spring Creek Parkway. But as you get farther around the turn, you know, there's ones that access from the cul-de-sac, but the other ones, yep, right there where your cursor is. Is there a way to require that they have a circular driveway? Because the slope of that curve, I don't think they would ever be able to see a car coming around to back out of their driveway.
Yeah, these are the ones, because of their setup on that shelf. That's why they're saying they can't. And this is down below. So topography doesn't show up on this, but yeah, that's another issue. Is we're saying, you know, there is a number of lots that are facing and have the only access. They have to have access onto Spring Creek Parkway according to the design. Now, that's not to say you have to accept design, but that's what it is. Designed and preliminary plat has been approved according to that design with conditions, but planning commission went through that. Anything, Rob, Scarlett, anything you want to add to those?
I understand where Janelle's coming from on wanting to have, I don't think we would want to have circular driveways, because that would just increase the number of road cuts on that road that we're trying to minimize the number of, or excuse me, ingress egress cuts, not road cuts, on that road that we're trying to minimize that on. We tried that on 100 North with a subdivision, And then we've tried it in a couple of places. Brent probably will remember because he was with the city when we did that, is to have turnaround pads, that they had to design their driveways such that there were turnaround pads. And what we've noticed is generally those turnaround pads just are the RV pad and they still back out onto the road. So I don't know how you enforce that once you get back on private property.
Thanks, Scarlett.
I have to agree with you, Scarlett. They just didn't work out down there, and people just, I guess, have to take the risk.
Any more comments or questions?
Just one, Mayor,
Go
just
ahead.
to let you know again that if you have questions for Steve, Steve Earle, he does have his hand raised if you want to listen, or obviously it's not a public hearing, so that's not required, but just to let you know.
Okay. Any questions of Steve from the council? Okay, I need to go back to my comment, and the question was about where the retention pond would be moved to, and Scarlett suggested the language of the development agreement could say will or shall. Rob said he would like to see it worded that way, that change. So I think we need a motion that includes that change to the agreement. Can I get a motion from a council member, or you just want to approve it as it's written?
Mayor, just a point of clarification. This is an ordinance. This isn't an agreement. The development agreement will come later in time, but this is an ordinance. But in the ordinance, we can change it to say they will relocate that pond, but it's not an agreement.
Okay, so yeah, so terminology wise, you're saying this is an ordinance change. We're not talking about amending the development agreement. We're talking about actually the code itself is going to be worded differently.
Not the code, but to vacate property, you have to do it by ordinance.
Okay.
And so the vacating ordinance is what we're talking about. We're not amending code. We're vacating and we're relocating that easement. So that's why in this ordinance, you can require that they will relocate that stormwater or the easement number 3 that they had labeled easement number 3.
Okay, so the ordinance we have in the package would add a sentence that be required.
It would be on line 39. It would just say the petitioner will relocate utility easement number 3. So you would just, instead of would like to, you strike would like to and replace it with will. The petitioner will relocate utility easement number 3 to an area
Got
that
it.
better serves the proposed development. If
Got it.
you want to make that a requirement.
Council, you okay with it?
Well, Christina would have to amend her motion to do that. I would second it if she did.
Good. Christina, would you be willing to amend your motion? And we got it right here. Ryan's pulled it up. So line 39, it starts out petitioner would like to relocate. Scarlett is suggesting the would like would be amended to say will.
Okay, I'll amend my motion to say will rather than would like.
And I will second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All right. Okay, this discussion's still open. Is there any more questions or comments we want to make on this? If not, I'll call for a vote. We ready to vote? All right, all in favor of approving the proposal to vacate the public utility easements with the amendment as in the motion, signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays? Okay, the item number 1 passes unanimously with the amendment. Thank you all. Thank you, Steve. All right, shall we move on? We have a presentation from our outside auditors, ACOG, Miles and Associates, certified public accountants. We have a draft of our annual report And Mike Miles is here to do that review for us. Ryan, anything you want to open this up with?
I would open that they came, they did their field work, they did a lot of work in advance. They were great to work with. The staff is appreciative of their work, and we have reviewed it. We've sent it to, and they met with the audit committee, which is made up of Councilmember Kirk and the mayor and I. We met, we visited, we've gone through the process. It's been a great process. So anyway, I appreciate and welcome Mike to our meeting. And so anyway, he'll take it through and give us an update. I've sat through his updates before and they're always educational.
Thanks, Ryan. Ryan, do you have the audit to share?
Yes.
So anyway, I appreciate you guys letting me do the audit. So we came out about a week and a half ago. We met with, of course, Ryan and Scarlett was there, and Tara and Diane. It was a really good experience. We had a small number of adjustments that we made to the books that we considered quite reasonable and routine. And we proposed those, and the staff there accepted them. And those were incorporated into the financial statements. It just went really well. We appreciate Ryan and the good staff they have. I can tell that the fraud risk assessment that they did was really impactful. We thought the internal controls, or the controls that are used to safeguard the assets of the community, are working and were well thought out. So you've got the audit package. It's about 50 pages long. I think we'll go through about 12 pages. And so we'll summarize those, and we'll take your questions. And I'm happy to be interrupted. So whenever you want to ask me something, fire away. Let's start on page 18. So not 18 of the PDF, but 18 of the page numbering. There we go. Awesome. So let's see. Okay. So there's two presentation formats. There's a business-like approach, and then there's more of a governmental approach that reflects how you budget. And that's where we're going to start, is on the budgetary approach. And that's on page 18. Total assets are about $4.1 million. A majority of that is in cash and receivables. There was about 1.4 million in the general fund that was unrestricted, and about 1.1 million of restricted. And we'll go about that. The restricted money there is mostly C road money and impact fees for the roads and the parks. And we've got a little graph later on in the presentation. The capital projects fund, it has about 2.4 million available to it. That's available for spending on future projects. The payables, or the liabilities of the city, are quite small compared to the assets available to the town, or to the city rather. 144,000 and change, and so that's excellent. You have a great financial position. The governmental side of things, which is parks, roads, and everything but the water and sewer and stormwater, there is no debt. The only debt in the community is, at this point, is the water fund. You did receive about nearly $250,000 in CARES Act money that Ryan highlighted briefly earlier. That was received in June, and we deferred that to the 2021 year, in the year it's going to be spent. So that'll match up those revenues with the expenses in the same year. Well, I guess down below in the restricted fund balances, we do have a summary already of the restricted cash. Those fund balances that are restricted, it mentions roads, perpetual care, which is the cemetery, library donations and street impact fees. That's about 1.1 million that you have reserved and earmarked for those. What's the word I want to use? For those purposes. The amount that's unassigned is available to be budgeted for anything that you consider necessary in the budgetary process, and that's the $1,550,000. The capital project fund has about $2.4 million that's available to it. $54,000 of that's earmarked for parks, and it's been earmarked there for a number of years. So all in all, the financial condition of the town, of the city, did improve significantly, which is neat to see a city in that good of shape. Let's go to the next page, page 19. So these are just the governmental funds, or the general fund and the capital projects fund. The total revenues were about $4.9 million. This was about $807,000 more than last year. The capital projects fund doesn't have much activity except for a little bit of interest earnings there of 16 grand. The total expenditures were about $4.1 million. That was about $510,000 more than last year. The capital projects fund did expend on some large projects. I believe there was some park projects and the cemetery expansion, and I believe that consists of that. The capital outlay in the general fund, I believe, was some vehicles, my recollection serves. So it left the general fund with a surplus of $811,000. And then it receives impact fees, which is another financing source. It's not a general revenue. That was an additional $510,000. And then it transferred about $575,000 over to the capital projects fund. That's just like a bank transfer. And so if you go to the third row from the bottom, after those three changes, it left a net increase in your fund balance, or like a net surplus of $746,000 and $105,000 in the capital projects fund, for a total of $852,000 increase. So a successful year. Your budget expenditure for the general fund was approximately $4.6 million. And so you were about $500,000 under budget. And we can go over that towards the end of the presentation. Let's jump to page 22. Okay, so these are the wastewater, and the stormwater. Total assets that are available are your current assets, meaning they're not tied up in infrastructure or restricted in any way. The water fund had about $44.2 million. Most of that was cash. The wastewater fund had about $3.6 million, and the stormwater had approximately $455,000. Tied up in restricted cash in the water fund was $288,000. Those are cash restricted for, I believe, water impact fees. That's my recollection. And also debt service covenants. You have to have at least $114,000 reserved for debt service. So between those two, that's your restricted cash. But most of the assets in those three funds are tied up in infrastructure. But like I said, you do have available to you that top section of current assets. Total liabilities towards the center of the page is $140,000, $58,000, and $68,000. So just over $250,000 between all three. And your current assets is $8.3 million. And you only have $250,000 of current liabilities. That's like a ratio of a lot to a little. So what does that work out to? 8.3 divided by a quarter. That's about a 30-to-1 ratio. That's pretty darn good. Scarlett indicated you might borrow some money on a large project here soon. So that might change one of these funds. Non-current liabilities, your compensated absences, which is basically accrued vacation and sick time and whatnot, PTO time. For all three funds combined, that was nearly $29,000. The only debt of the city is in the water fund. Revenue bonds long-term are $111,000. And if you go up to the current portion, there's $108,000 of current portion. So there's basically two payments. One in the current year we're in now, and then one next year. And then that loan will be paid off. That loan is accruing at 2.9% interest. So total liabilities for all three funds, 485,000. Like I said, they're all in excellent financial condition at this point in time. The balance is your net position or your equity or your book value, and those are pretty good shape. Any questions at this point? Exciting. Okay, page 23.
Hey, Mike, the council
Yes,
members
Mike.
just got this report, so I would imagine most of them, including myself, have not had time to digest all of this, so we may have some questions. First, we'll direct them to Ryan, and if he doesn't have the answers, you might hear from them, so.
Okay, that sounds just great. Okay, page 23 is your income statement for the three proprietary funds. So let's jump to the next. Oh, you are on it. Thanks, Ryan. Total operating income. We'll do one fund at a time. So this is the water. Total operating income was about 1.2 million. Total expenses were 870,000 before impact fees and interest earnings and whatnot. So that left an operating surplus of 355. Additional non-operating income, which is the collection of your impact fees on your new hookups, interest earnings, gain on the loss, gain or loss on asset disposition. So you traded in a backhoe, and that for bookkeeping purposes, there was a gain there on the backhoe trade-in, and then some interest on your loan, 8,800. So that added to your operating income, and it left you with a total net income before grants, which there were none this year, of 649,000. So pretty good. The net operating income last year for the water fund was about 698,000. So it was about half of the operating income of the prior year. The wastewater fund, just over $1 million, 1,090,000. Total expenses of 1,115,000 for a small loss. Last year, there was an operating surplus of about 67,000. So about $100,000 swing in the wastewater fund. It did receive additional revenues from interest earnings and a small amount of impact fees. So that decreased the overall loss to 13,212. So nearly a break even for that. The stormwater, not nearly as big, 147,000, 120,000 of expenses for about a $26,000 surplus. The next page is the operating statement, the cash flow statement, and it's broken down into 4 major sections.
Before you go there, Mike.
Fire away.
Just for the council, you'll see on the wastewater, one of our largest costs is Logan City. And as they've projected, and if they have rate increases, we need to be cautious that as their rate increases happen to us, that we pass them on. And so because they are a large portion of our expense. Anyway, I just point that out.
You know, that's a good point. Hey, Ryan, go back to the operating expenses. Fiscal year 2020 was a unique year. It was a year that the city chose to write off a significant amount of bad debt. There was a lot of receivables on the books that were considered uncollectible. And so you see that row bad debt, it totals about 185,000. I don't anticipate you'll see a number like that because it was a write-off of receivables that had accumulated over a number of years. And so I don't think you'll see a significant bad debt again as it'll be kept up on. Does that kind of summarize that, Ryan, do you think?
I agree. We had some cleanup work and I believe we've cleaned that and getting on top of that one. So yes.
This had accumulated over how long a period of time? So I guess the question, when was the last time we had written off any bad debt?
Might be a better question for Scarlett if I don't know that one.
I have a feeling it was a while, but I don't know if Scarlett's. Okay.
It's been quite a while that they have done that since they've written it off. So it was good to do all the cleanup.
I have a question on that page before you leave it. Looks like we had a significant amount of repair and maintenance to the tune of 734,000. Can somebody help me with that? What did we do? Is that new? That isn't new construction. What did we run into?
I think a lot of that is the Logan City. I think that's where Logan City is costed in wastewater.
Yeah, they're
That's what it is.
characterizing that as maintenance rather than repair, but really it's a third-party service mingled with that.
Scarlett, is that what that is?
Yes, that's the Logan City wastewater treatment. A significant portion of that is what that was.
So these are the fees we're paying Logan City
The fees are
Correct.
included in that number, correct?
in repair and maintenance.
As part of maintenance, yes, because that's not the way it's listed. That's the way it's summarized in the audit. When you look at our actual budget line items, you'll see it says wastewater treatment. But in the audit, they lump all of those kind of things together, and that's considered maintenance. Routine maintenance is the wastewater treatment fees.
Okay, so
It just seems like to me in the audit, it would be better identified. I mean, that maintenance, I guess, but almost repair and maintenance seems within the city of Providence versus the outside treatment we're required to pay for as it goes to Logan City. I just don't know if that represents a very clear picture.
I agree.
We can add an additional row there before we upload it to the state auditor's office. That's not a problem.
Maybe I'm the only one that feels that way.
No, I agree.
Just to give you an idea of what that amount was, of that repair and maintenance, sewer treatment is probably a gross majority of it. Our budget our amount last year was over 620,000, 650,000. So a large, the gross percentage of this is by far that treatment. So we could break it out, but there wouldn't be much else other than that number.
Ryan, I pulled up the year-end figures for.
Yeah, that's good. I didn't have the year end, but.
You're right. We spent $726,412 and some change.
There you go.
So all but what, 29,000 or something is wastewater treatment fees to Logan City.
So we could definitely break the item out, but keep in mind that by and large, 90% plus is Logan's treatment on that number.
So since this is a public document and available to all of our citizens, and they all pay their utility bill, which includes the sewer, and in past years, we've seen that increase and agreed with Logan City to increase it each year for 5 years. And I mean, I'll just, in layman's terms, this sticks out like a sore thumb. Brent makes a good point. It makes our job easier when we have a resident ask, we can point to the financial statements that are available to the public and say, there's a line item at $700-some thousand, and that's we're not in the wastewater treatment business, and that all goes to Logan City.
I'll support you on that. That's not a big deal.
You'll make that change and send it back to us, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds
It'll
great.
have to, yeah. Good? Okay. So page 24 is the cash flow statement. There's 4 major sections to this. There's cash flow from operations, and then non-capital financing, which there's no activity. There's capital and related financing, and then there's investing. So it's important that the cash flow from operations is adequate to finance the debt service and the capital outlay of each of their funds. So in this case, one alarming thing would be is we saw a community that had a negative operating cash flow, because that means they wouldn't even be generating enough cash flow to make improvements or even pay their loans. So in this case, the water fund generated about 717,000. And then it has to fund the debt service and the capital outlay. And so if we go down to that third section, there was cash received from impact fees of 192,000, which supplemented the cash flow. And then cash payments for capital assets, improvements to the water system were 907,000. Your long-term debt payment towards principal was 105. Interest was 9,400. And so that particular section draws your cash down by 830. Then some interest earnings are received for another 49,000. So all in all, the water fund decreased its cash flow by 64,000. Considering you spent over 900,000 on infrastructure improvements without any sort of debt financing, I consider that very good. So I think that's great.
I have a question. Ryan, cash payments for capital assets at 907,000 there. What did we spend that on?
Before I got here in that summer, I think you completed 500 South Water Project.
Okay.
There was also the purchase of 350,000 of water shares.
Water rights.
Oh, that's right. Water
Water
rights
rights.
as well.
And then a backhoe was purchased after the trade-in. That was about 48,000 of cash.
So
And then
we had an obligation that was, I think, 18 years old or 20 years old, something like that. Scarlett knows the details. And that was with, it wasn't Selco, it's
Providence Highlands,
Providence Highlands, which is,
Imagine Development.
right, that's Jeremy Jensen. Okay. So we had that obligation that we had carried from way back 20 years ago.
all those, all of that big project and the water shares or water rights impacted the cash flow for the year. In the wastewater fund, the operations generated about 176,000. Not much else going on. A little bit of impact fees, 2,400, some interest earnings. So that the wastewater increased 189,168. The stormwater, it generated 63,528. It did have some improvements, 121,600. And so it decreased its cash flow by 58,000 because of those capital assets purchased. So all in all, more or less a break-even year if you combine the three, considering the cash on hand was approximately 8.2 million at the beginning, and it was about slightly higher, 8.3 million at the end. So pretty break even on $8 million. So
Mayor, can I make one comment? Just to keep everybody informed, that 2433 impact fee, that will go directly to Logan City. So in the 2021 audit, you will see a substantial amount of impact fees collected in wastewater treatment or in the sewer fund. They're going towards wastewater treatment. They will all go out as well. So I just don't want you to think that we've started a sewer impact fee. We may do that after our sewer master plan is completed. We may create a sewer impact fee for distribution, but this particular impact fee is for wastewater treatment. So that money's going to Logan City.
And that number grows substantially in 2021.
Yes, it will.
Even first quarter, we were almost 70,000.
any more input to this point, or should I continue? Let's jump to page 35, Ryan. These are no disclosures required from our profession. They make really good Sunday school reading. So the bottom of page 35 is just a summary of the receivables and the allowance for doubtful accounts at the end of the year, and these agree with the financial statements. So between all of the governmental and proprietary funds, there's about 1.9 million of receivables. Most of that is your property tax budget that you anticipate collecting this winter from the county. Your allowance for doubtful accounts, which is accounts due beyond 90 days, is about 78,000. You'll collect some of that and not collect a lot of it for a net receivable of about 1.8 million. So cleaning up the accounts receivable, I think, was valuable this year to more accurately reflect what your accounts receivable is anticipated to be. Page 36 is a summary of your capital assets for just the general fund, your governmental projects, roads, parks and whatnot, cemetery. There was construction in progress of 319,000 at the beginning of the year. There were some projects that were ongoing that were not quite complete at the end of the year, so that rose to 762,000. And those projects were nearly complete at June 30, but not quite. And so they'll be put into service and included in the middle section. The capital assets being depreciated were about 14.1 million at the beginning of the year. There was additions of machinery and equipment of 218,000. There was a backhoe in there that was retired, and it's being recorded now in the water fund, which is a more applicable fund for the use of that backhoe. So capital assets being depreciated is about 14.3 million. And then there's some depreciation calculation if we were to analyze deeper a business-like approach for the city, which we're not going to get into this evening. Page 37, the next page. This reflects the changes to the water, sewer, or wastewater and the stormwater. There was 918,000 of additions. It reflects the water rights that were purchased. Additions to the infrastructure was about 568,000. Just over $1 million of it was not completed at the end of the year, and that'll be put into service here this year, I'm sure. Assets being depreciated, there were some additions. I believe there was 4 pickups. It's my recollection. There was about 4 trucks. And then we retired the backhoe. That was the $8,447 retirement, was the trade-in of the old backhoe. And then some depreciation on those items. Any questions to this point? Okay. Page 38, just highlight that really quick. Beginning balance of the only loan of the city, 324,000. It's costing you interest of 2.9%. You paid down about a third of it for 219,000 balance, and then 2 more payments. Page 39 just summarizes the restricted net position, or basically your restricted cash that you have for every fund. The general fund is holding on to about $1.1 million that's earmarked for those 4 categories: road, cemetery, library, and street. And those can only be expended on improvements and not on maintenance, or expansion rather. Not just improvements, but it needs to expand the capacity of those systems. There's some park impact fees, 54,000, and then the water fund, it's holding on to about 174,000 of impact fees received on the water for connections. And then your sinking fund reserve that you're required to keep for debt covenants is 114,352. Interfund transfers was just between the general fund and the capital projects fund. Looking good there. Now we're really going to fly. The city participates in the Utah retirement system and contributes there. It's approximately 16% of their payroll is contributed on their behalf to the URS to accrue their retirement benefit. Let's jump all the way to page 49. This is right there, perfect. The general fund budget is required disclosure. You can see the revenues that were budgeted originally, the final budget, and then the actual revenues, and then the variance column. So your actual revenues exceeded your final budget. It exceeded that by 274,000. Your expenditures, your original budget and your amended budget were quite similar. And they were about $467,000 less than what you budgeted, which was excellent. And then you budgeted, and that's all I wanted to highlight there. And then lastly, page 50. Okay, I can't point on my screen to help you. See the 93.7% right there right there. Thanks, Ryan. And then in the prior year, it was 87%. So these are numbers for the employees of the community. They might be interested in know the Utah retirement systems. It had funded every state and governmental employee that participates. Their projected liability with investments, they had covered 87% of that projected liability for all retirees, working and retired. And in the 1 year, the 12 months later, because of the success in the stock market and other things, that funding increased 6.7% in one single year. So you can feel good that URS is very well funded and is in pretty good financial condition. I happened to stumble on the state of Hawaii's pension plan. They are about 51% funded, and they don't have any light at the end of the tunnel for getting theirs funded. So anyway, just thought you'd like to see that. And that's it. The remaining are more reports. The last 3 pages are compliance reports and state compliance reports. We don't indicate any findings in these reports. They're a clean opinion, no written findings. We did discuss with Ryan and Scarlett before we left. We did make a couple recommendations. We recommend that the journal entries get reviewed monthly, and that Ryan agreed to do that. And that also any changes to your accounts receivable accounts, if you make any adjustments to a customer's receivable balance, that also get reviewed. And I talked to Tara and Ryan, and they all agree that they will begin doing that monthly. So that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mike.
Wake up.
I'm impressed. I had to eat 3 candy bars to get through all those numbers. I don't know how many you eat to do that day in, day out.
When talking, I couldn't eat anything.
I'm just going to save that for my.
Did we lose Josh?
Josh, you froze, I'm afraid.
I think it's a part of the city we need fiber.
Yeah, we know where to start.
On Grandview Drive, Carrie.
That's right.
Okay. Josh, are you still with us?
He'll be back.
Josh had a question. Okay. Personally, I need to digest some of this, Mike, and you may hear from me. I'll entertain Ryan first. Council members, I encourage you to take some time to go through this, make some notes, and ask questions of the city staff, or if necessary, I'm sure we can talk to Mike. You good with that, Mike?
Yes.
The other thing I wanted to mention is this is refreshing, and I'll tell you why. In prior years, it's been sometime in the middle of about the end of the first quarter of the following calendar year, before we were having a conversation with our outside auditors about the audit for the period ending the prior fiscal year. So we're sitting here in middle of November, and we're way ahead of where we've ever been in the past. So we're talking about a period of time that's still fairly fresh in our mind and relevant. So I appreciate you guys being here, being able to be here as early in the year after the fiscal year as you have. Actually, I'd like to see it sooner, but.
We did too want to get a little bit sooner, but we got busy. COVID set us behind. It's been difficult.
We initially had them scheduled for a little earlier, and then they had their peer review, which comes every 3 years. So COVID, peer review, lots of things came. We would have had it a month earlier possibly, but we're pretty happy with the time frame it's at.
So Ryan, how long before the end of a year are we in a position to invite auditors? In other words, how long before our books are closed?
You know, some of it really depends on the workload of our software company. You wouldn't think that the software company might be your spot, but we have to wait at least 2 months before we can close because we're still receiving and still paying and have that. So generally, you don't see audits wrapped up before end of September. We talked early on with our software company, Polaris, and we got moved from the bottom of the list to closer to the top. We're probably middle to top of the list. And that has made a huge difference, I would say. Right, Mike? Would you agree? You do a lot with Polaris.
Oh, certainly. And it took us a little while to get to Providence. They had the books ready early October.
Yeah, so we could have, the best we could have done was do this a month before now. Would have been as early as we possibly could have done it. So we're pretty good. Most of them, how many would you say of your clients, how many are done and how many still have to do? Are we midpoint, early? Where would you say, Mike?
You're early. December's a really common month, and it's not because of, well, you're probably right in the middle.
It's a good spot for us to be. We don't want to be last.
No, and I think we can shoot for October in the future. That's pretty reasonable. Your council meetings, are they monthly?
They are.
So that might be hard to hit mid. We might be stuck with November again, but the audit will be done earlier than that. I know Kyle.
I would give the council a week to review it and give them more time to digest it before our meeting.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, I just wanted to mention Ryan, Kyle, he got to that. We made our proposed adjustments and he had the financial statements ready in about 3 days. That was on their end, that was spectacular.
And Kyle is our software company, so that you guys have an idea of who he's talking about. So.
Okay. Council, anything else? Any more questions at this time? I encourage you to spend some time on this, get familiar with it. I think, and I made a note here, Ryan has suggested in the future we have a session where Ryan takes some time and explains some of the financial intricacies of government accounting and other subtopics. So I'll
Green candy bars or donuts and swig.
So we'll have to drop them off if we're still in the Zoom mode. So hopefully we're not.
Okay, I'll bring them for myself.
All right. Anything else, council? Okay. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate your presentation. And
thank you, Mayor. Good evening.
You bet. Have a good one. All right. Let's move on. Administrative business items. Amend development agreement resolution 0392020. Providence City Council will consider for adoption a resolution amending the development agreement for the Lichty subdivision, granting a time extension. Scarlett, can you give us just a short intro on this?
So a couple of years ago, the Lichty family came to us and they wanted to do a they wanted to break 2 lots off of a larger piece. And so we worked with them on that. And while we were working with them, we were also thinking about the future and about reservoirs. And we talked to them about entertaining the idea of us purchasing some more property near the Eck reservoirs for a possible additional reservoir that would serve zone 1 or water zone 1. And as a result of that, they went ahead with their subdivision plans and they got their subdivision plans, but are ready and approved, but our negotiations on the purchase of their property went a little longer. It's really just been, and Ryan, you will probably have to pop in and let me know for sure when you met with the Lichtys and finally decided that it probably isn't in the cards for us to purchase that property. And so now they didn't have enough time. Once we made that decision, they didn't have enough time to complete their improvements under the original development agreement. So they're requesting, excuse me, I ate a pretzel and I swallowed the salt wrong, I think. They are requesting a 1-year extension so that they can get those improvements done. And staff is in favor of, they've been very good to work with us, and we're in favor of allowing that extension.
Yeah, I met with him a couple of times, and it's probably been a month since the last one, and we met before. But we have a number of things. We have a tank that we've already designed, acquired the land. We're getting ready to bid out. We got some other things that we got to work on. So we're in favor of giving them an extension. We helped them, and obviously we'd like to see them continue on and be able to fulfill their development. So they've been good to work with. We've been happy with them. We do have Mike Lichty as its attendee. So if you have questions for him, he is in the audience. And so anyway, if there's questions, I know they sent out a map of where the property's at. If there's any questions, we can either take those or visit with him. So.
Okay, we're going to need to start with a motion to go forward on this. Council members, are you ready to make a motion on this development agreement, to the amendment?
I'll make a motion, Mayor, that we extend the Lichtys the 1-year time frame as per the proposed
Resolution. It's a resolution.
There we go. Yeah. I propose. It's resolution. It's just 000-2020. There's no other number on it when I looked at it. Did I miss something?
039.
It's actually 039, Brent, but I didn't get it up in the title. I have it down in the footnote, but I didn't get it up in the title.
Okay, so resolution 039-2020. I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Councilman Paulson.
Motion from Councilman Speth, second from Councilman Paulson. Further discussion, Ryan mentioned that Mike Lichty is on the line. If you have questions of him, Ryan can turn his microphone on his end. Council, any questions on that? I just have one question just for clarification. And I think I'm not sure if the council knows where this location is. There are 2 existing reservoirs. When we had the discussion as a city staff about acquiring land, we thought because the plumbing is already there, adding a 3rd reservoir and additional capacity, that would likely be an ideal location. That's how the discussion was. Scarlett, did that existing property with the reservoirs on them, was that property acquired from the Lichty family as well?
Yes, they've worked with us in the past, yes.
Okay. So that's the history of that. And we looked at different configurations, and Ryan can explain what the city's position in deciding not to put a 3rd reservoir there.
Yeah, at this point, we're looking at more source, providing more source water and bringing water to that point than storage. So the better we can get the source and that flowing, the Spring Creek water, a well, those kind of source items, as we can produce that rather than storage and then drain that storage. Lots of places don't have 3. I mean, I don't know any place that has 3 tanks for that on the same spot, unless they're serving different zones in different ways. But we just felt that at this point, at least for the foreseeable future, we have the storage we need, and we need to focus on some other areas. And we don't want to hold them up in their development while we have other things we're taking care of.
Can I add one quick thing to that?
Sure.
Allowing this development to continue as it was designed doesn't completely eliminate any future negotiations for that land. The sewer will go through the location that kind of may or may not need to be relocated depending on whether negotiations continue in the future and how fast they decide to develop the remaining parcel of their land. This makes it so that they can complete the lot split for the two lots that they've already had planned to do. It doesn't totally wipe out any possible future negotiations that could continue with the lichties. It just allows them to complete what they'd already started since so much time went by.
Okay. Council, any other questions? Okay. Hearing no further discussion, can I call for a vote? All right. All in favor of amending the lichty development agreement, resolution 039-2020, and extending the development agreement for 1 year, signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays? Unanimous. The resolution passes. Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for being available. All right, let's move on. Item number 2, agreement for municipal advisory services. Resolution number 040-2020. Providence City Council will consider for adoption a resolution approving an agreement for municipal advisory services between Providence City and Zion's Public Finance for assistance pertaining to all financing of the city, including but not limited to general obligation bonds, revenue bonds, lease revenue bonds, special assessment bonds, tax increment bonds, notes, and other obligations issued by the city, its municipal building authority, RDA, or other creation, with the exception of those financing specifically excluded under Section 2 of the agreement with respect to funding the installation of fiber throughout the city. Ryan, quick intro.
Yeah.
This
So at
resolution.
this point, what we're doing is we've reached out to Zion's Bank to represent us as a municipal advisor. We would look to this as an avenue for us to get fiber. It is an avenue that we can't sell bonds on our own, and so they would help us with that process. So if we decide to move forward with fiber, we would look to sell those bonds. We would use Zion's Bank to do that process. And we don't have a lot of debt capacity. We may have other options in the future. We don't have anything that, as far as we don't have a need to sell bonds with CIB. So the water tank that we have, that didn't require a financial advisor to be able to help us in that avenue, because we went directly to the lending agency. But it is more complicated when we actually sell municipal bonds on the market. And so we would be looking to have somebody that would help us with that. I do have Mark here with us representing Zion's Bank in case we have questions for him. We can address this either through a generic one as it's written, or we can make it so that it's specific for fiber. Either direction I think is fine with Zion's Bank. But if we have other needs that we decide, maybe we want to go out for a bond for park property, which we're talking about. Maybe we want to go out for other things. It's good to be able to have a financial advisor that can help us. I have worked with Mark. Mark is a previous city manager. has some good technical experience, and now works for Zions Bank and has been there. I think you've been there 3 years. Is that correct? 2 or 3?
2.5.
2.5. So anyway, he represents us well if we decide to go that way. So anyway, I would encourage you to consider that. And if you have any questions for me or for Mark, we would entertain those.
I guess my question would be for you, Ryan. I don't know if this is out of order in that case. Have we had this service before, these advisory services? Is this new then?
We have not had this as far as I'm aware, so this would be new. But we don't have a lot of debt, so we wouldn't have had a need for it.
So
We actually did, Josh, only Zions helped us quite a few years ago on a Class C road fund, I think it was, when we borrowed against those. And then when we did our 2001 water debt that we're about to pay off, we used, it wasn't Zions, we used another firm, but we have had financial, we've contracted for financial services like this before, yes.
Thank you for that, Scarlett.
Go.
Could I just interject a couple things to help the council understand the services we provide, if that'd be okay, Mayor?
Sure, go ahead, Mark.
So understand that we only get paid if the city issues debt. And we're precluded from making recommendations to the city by SEC regulations unless we have an advisory relationship with the city. And so we think it's an asset to the city to have us available to answer questions about financings that the city is considering, so that we can give you our impression of the financial markets, the options for obtaining financing. And we're in the markets regularly. We have 6 bankers in Utah. We just recently did some bond pricing for the city of Salem for a fiber project. I was not on that transaction, but Jonathan Ward in my office was. So we think there's value in having access to it, and to really be able to be the most effective and be able to make recommendations, we have to have an agreement in place before we can do that.
Brent?
Years ago, Scarlett, is this what, was it Jim Matsumori that worked with us from Zions Bank? Is this kind of the same idea? I mean, at that time, I don't think we had to have a agreement contract, approved by the council. But didn't Mr. Matsumori help us with our water bonds and stuff like that? Is that kind of what we're talking about here?
Yes, I think that was in like 95. And then we had a gentleman named David Miner that did financial consulting that helped us in the 2001. But yes, we've worked with Zions back in the 90s. We worked with Zions quite a bit. And then David Miner on the 2001 water bond.
We're the guys that hand out the bridge mix at league meetings, the chocolate nuts.
Yeah.
We haven't been able to attend many of those, so why don't you just send a box up?
I can arrange that, Ryan.
Those apples that Alex brings goes really well though. So don't forget those good apples.
We've decided that it wouldn't be appropriate to deliver those this year in light of COVID, but that is very popular this time of year for sure.
So my understanding is that this is a necessary step in order to move forward with fiber. Is that a correct understanding?
Yeah, that's a correct understanding. We need to have recommendations and help to move in the financing of that.
So,
Okay.
So part of the discussion with Zions is to discuss our funding options. And what I mean by that, and Mark could probably clarify, or Ryan, is bonds are secured by something, by a revenue stream of some sort. And so some of those options involve issuing bonds that are taxable, generate taxable to the bondholder, and some are non-taxable, which is more attractive and also better for the city. So Ryan has had those discussions with Zions, but we need the guidance so we get the best deal for the city possible. In a nutshell, that's how I would explain it. Ryan, you can expand on that.
I agree. Their value will be in reviewing our agreements with Strata. If we go that way, so that we make sure that we get tax exempt, it'll be important for us to be able to know what financing choices and options we have, both for this project and if we have others, but primarily at this time, this is fiber. We're looking for recommendations on which way to go and avenues to get there.
So one of the things that we'll do is we'll help the city understand what revenues are available to pledge. There's a limit on the amount of sales tax revenues that can be pledged for fiber financings. Some of that's just because of the Xfinity and other providers of these types of services have convinced the legislature to somewhat limit the ability of municipalities to get into the wholesale business of internet services. And so we'll help you understand what your bonding capacity is based on revenues that are available to pledge. And then identify, what avenue to pursue is to find the most attractive interest rate that's available in the market once the financing details are determined.
So in a nutshell, that's what we're talking about, approving an agreement with Zions for advisory services. So I don't think we've had a motion on this. So let's go ahead with that. At this point, I'll ask the council for a motion to approve the resolution to adopt the agreement with Zions Bank. Council, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement for municipal advisory services from Zions Bank, resolution number 40/2020.
040
040.
2020. There you go. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from a motion from Councilwoman Kirk, second from Councilman Spath. Further discussion, questions, clarifications from the council? Don't see any hands raised, don't see any head nods. Anything else, Ryan, do you want to add?
No, I think that's covered unless there's questions.
Okay. No further discussion. I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor of approving the agreement for municipal advisory services and adopting resolution 040/2020, signify by saying aye.
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 Nay, anyone? Okay, so we pass unanimously. There are no nays. Thank you, Mark, for joining us and appreciate you being available.
Thank
And on that note, we'll,
you. I'm an accountant by training, so I wasn't totally bored.
what's that?
Mark is a licensed CPA, so he wasn't completely bored through the last presentation.
Okay. All righty, let's move on. All right. Item number 3, city manager agreement, resolution 041/2020. Providence City Council will consider for adoption a resolution updating the city manager agreement. You all have a copy in your package. There's one section of a paragraph that Ryan has asked that we change, actually delete. It has a termination period or point in time that he's asked that we delete, and it just be, how would you describe it, Ryan?
So you could choose to either way. I wanted to show both options to you on that one. But you can either choose and to have the agreement last for 3 years, which is traditional, or you can have a non-term agreement. But city manager agreements don't have automatic renewals, so you either have to set a term or have no term. So that's kind of what that paragraph does. So if you want me to work my 3 years and then work for another agreement, I do still have performance evaluations, performance reviews. Those things still are there, and that's applicable. This is just taking out an end date for my contract. So anyway, that's up to you guys. I'd like that, but I'll take whatever you'll offer, I suppose. I hope that we've done well. One of my big points, I would, if I can, one of my big points is it's been a year. I was hired a year ago. 4 of you were not on the council when I was hired. Ever since I've been hired and ever since you've taken office, I have felt a responsibility to make sure I come back and have you weigh in on my employment, because it's an important piece for you. And so I want to make sure that I've come back, respected that. Secondly, I don't want my position to be political, so I'd rather renew and update on non-municipal years. And so every 2 years, come back, talk about it, make sure that the council that's currently serving is good with my continued employment, because I want to serve the 6 of you.
And your anniversary date is December 6th, coming up shortly.
Would have been December 1st, I think. I was offered before the election, so my actual contract started before the election, but my actual show up was first Monday of December. So I'm right in that time window. Yes.
You were physically on board December 6th. So,
okay.
So,
well, can I be the first to just thank you, Ryan, for everything? I can't and not having you.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I make a motion to approve this?
sure, if we're ready to go forward with that, yes.
I think I am.
Well, I think there might be, so I talked to Ryan about what he would like I'm like, is this it? Is this all you want? Because he had mentioned that he wanted some changes. And I think there are other like minor changes, and I don't want to open a can of worms if Ryan doesn't want to open that can of worms. But I am with Christina. I'm really happy with what Ryan has done. And I feel like we want him to have a contract that he's happy with. And if there's little things that are bugging him, that we should look at those adjustments. And I don't know if that should happen along with this or at another time. But if we're leaving the contract open-ended, then it seems like this would be a good time to bring up the other things that are possibly not that big of a deal, but worth talking about.
So let me give you another summary of what you have in your packet and what you've been given. There is a contract that doesn't have, it's the first one inside of the agenda. That is the proposed contract. The next contract is what my current one is. And the third one is the ICMA generic contract that the International City Managers Association recommends the contract to be. So this first one to approve would include items that Carrie and I have talked about. Those would be included in this proposal on the first, on that. And there is a few things that are different from my current contract to this one, other than just that one clause. But this is the contract that mirrors what I had in Roosevelt, and it is based on the ICMA ideal or model contract. So this would bring me into parity with my peers, I would say. Anything above or changed from there could definitely be talked about, negotiated, or that. And like I said, I do want to make sure that the current council is on board with making sure I'm employed for you. Does that make sense?
The reason why I interrupted your motion before you made it is because I feel like Ryan does a very professional work, and that he's not only met but exceeded expectations, and that if it would make him more satisfied with his position, where he's not seeking a change in compensation or any major changes, but if it would make him more happy with his position to have a standard contract, I think that that's something that we should consider in our motion.
So
yeah, I
are
would
you,
entertain this first one if you would approve that. I'm happy with the presentation of that one, and it would be the first contract presented in your packet. That was what I would think would be a standard drafted agreement.
As I understand it, that's the one that we're voting on too, right, Ryan? I mean,
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
so what I see are there's 3 agreements, and one with the change of language, and it's just that one paragraph. And then there's a one that was actually signed last year, and then there's the ICMA version of it. So just for clarification, Carrie, are you talking about continuing this and amending an agreement that covers some other details? Or what are you suggesting we do?
Well, I just want to make the contract something that Ryan is more comfortable with. And Ryan, if you just want us to approve that first contract, then I think we can move in that direction. But if you want us to seek to approve a contract that's the ICMA, is that the acronym?
It is. So
Standard contract, then I think we need to move in that direction. It's really what you want most.
I would say I would want to have you adopt the contract that's in there to be adopted, that first contract. It is based on it. So at that point, you can go through each section, and that contract is based on it. The ICMA gives you an ability that says, you know what, we want to go through and create our own because we want to add or remove this or that. That gives you the broad guideline of what is industry standard, but that first contract is based on that. It is my hope to have passed that would be it, but I would, if we want to look at language and say, you know what, I really don't like that language, the ICMA does have opportunity to do that. I didn't know how detailed you want to negotiate, and so I'm open for what it is. But if the council is willing to adopt that contract that is there presented, then I'm willing to take it, and I'd be happy with that. Absolutely.
So just for a point of clarification, the way the resolution reads, we're considering adopting the first one with the amendment to that one paragraph only. Okay, so because it's not named in the resolution or doesn't give us an option to pick 1, 2, or 3, if the council decides we want to consider one of the other versions, the existing one or the ICMA version, or some hybrid that addresses some specific things, then we would have to continue this. And it would have to be on the agenda for next month for consideration.
So Mayor,
Yes.
that resolution that's in that packet. And for a minute there, I thought I didn't put it in, so I re-emailed it to you, but it is in the packet. But that's just talking about that one paragraph. There are some other changes apparently. So I don't know if the resolution is worded quite. Ryan, did you look at the resolution? Are you okay with the way the resolution it reads?
Right. It would replace the contract that was there before with that one that's there. It does have a couple of it has a date wrong in the resolution. But I believe the resolution would adopt that contract. And generally that unless you, like any resolution, if you want to make a modification to the resolution, but I believe as I've read it, it would be the attached province city management employment contract shall be approved and replace the city manager one previously adopted. So I would say that is the first attached one. That would be the agreement. The next one would have been for informational purposes, showing you what is being replaced.
Okay, so sorry I created all of that conversation, just seeking for understanding of the three contracts. But Councilman Speth, if you wanted to make the motion, I agree with adopting that first contract that he's seeking.
But let me ask to clarify, are you wanting to have the term at 3 years or no term? I guess that's the question I would have to make sure that that's defined.
I personally am fine with no term because there's annual review anyway.
And the motion that Councilman Speth was making was to adopt the first version here, which is no term.
That's it.
Okay, so can we go back to letting Councilmember Speth finish his resolution?
Okay. We got there. Anyway, yes, I would like to make a motion that we approve. Now I got to go back here and find it. That we approve resolution 041-2020. The agreement for, let's see, I lost it on my screen now. Agreement for the new, tell me what I'm approving here. I lost it on my screen.
Oh, resolution 041-2020.
Right. I make a motion we approve that.
Resolution updating the city manager agreement.
There we go. Yeah, that's good. I lost it on my screen. Sorry.
And I'll second.
Councilwoman Kirk.
Second.
Okay. All right. Now we have recommendation resolution in place. Any further comments or discussion, questions of Ryan? Any further thoughts? No further discussion?
I think you're doing awesome, Ryan. We really appreciate all you do.
Yeah, we do. You're great. Boy, you're great to work with and got great knowledge and a good depth of experience. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate working for you and I appreciate the great staff that we have. We have a lot of great staff here at the city and I appreciate working with them.
Oh, I do want to mention before we go to a vote that this whole city manager issue was a huge uphill battle the last 3 years to get to where we're at with Ryan right now. So we're glad Ryan's here. On that note, I'll call for a vote for resolution 041-2020 to adopt a resolution approving an updated city manager agreement. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Josh, where are you?
I think I was the first. Aye. Here.
Okay. Any nay? Okay, resolution passes. It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. All right, council reports, items presented by the city council members. are presented as informational only. No formal action will be taken. City council may act on an item if it rose subsequent to posting of this agenda and council determines that an emergency exists. I'm just going to go left to right here. Brent, anything you want to update us on?
You talking to me?
Yeah, emergency services.
Yeah.
And others.
Well, you know, the big issue, of course, is I got the whole country as well as our lifestyle upset as coronavirus. And I think it's going to wind up that they're predicting now the only way where this thing's ever going to really come under control is to get a vaccine that's going to slow this thing down. People are not responding as well as they would hope to. And we're just seeing a lot of rise in cases. I just hope we don't run out of space to take care of people and before we get a vaccine that's going to do something. But this is, probably the greatest emergency this world has ever seen, greatest problem. And people just need to really be responsible for themselves. We can't force our responsibility on anybody, but gosh, we just really need to be responsible. I know my daughter's picked up COVID-19 and she's really sick, and I'm really worried about her. And it's just people that I don't know where she picked it up, but it's happening. It's out there. It's on the move. So hope we can get something going with a vaccine and get on top of this thing. That's all I have.
Thank you, Brent. Carrie, unmute. There you go.
So I recovered from COVID this last month. It was a little rough, but we made it through, and now I'm immune for a while, so that feels good. The youth council was going to have a swearing in ceremony this month, which we canceled. We're hoping to participate in at least maybe helping to decorate the Christmas tree. We got an email today that Ridgeline hit their 15. So it will be interesting to see what happens with the high school in the next couple of days. And how it's hard to plan past a day, isn't it? Like with the youth council, I feel so bad for these youth, and not just the ones on the council, but the youth whose lives have been uprooted at such a special time when they should just be living carefree. But I feel like we did do a little activity in November, and in the end of October, Halloween weekend, and it was outdoor and social distance, and it was fun to be together. And so we move forward, and hopefully things will get a little more reliable.
Okay.
But my other assignments, there's nothing new to report.
Okay. Janelle?
Things that I have to report on. I was going to mention what Carrie said, the school districts that the high school is discussing going online. I mentioned some stuff to Ryan that elementary school in Providence has had a few safety issues that they've referred to the sheriff. There's been some talk about working on some surveillance in the Uptown Park to help the elementary school. And the library, we've kind of gotten some information from the county library. They're assessing their service to the library users within the county. Just some data that they've sent us is that Providence City has about 1,200 residents that actively use the library, and the other cities in the county are 150 or less per city. And it's something I've kind of mentioned to Ryan and talked with the mayor a little bit about, but does the city have an interest in having our own library? because the county is thinking about maybe making a shift there. And the facility is within our bounds. So that might be something that if you guys have thoughts on, you could share with me. We have our board meeting tomorrow night with the library. So we'll see what is discussed there. I don't even know if it's actually going to happen with the COVID restrictions or not, but at this point it's still on.
I would just add to that. They have funded it for this year, so it will be county through the end of 2021. They've at least funded it in their coming budget. So anyway, if we do something, we don't have to rush. We just want to plan if we do something different. But at this point, they do have it funded. At least that's what they told us through their 2021 budget.
So just for clarification, the county is on a calendar year, accounting year. So when Ryan refers to 2021, he's saying the county has agreed to fund it through December of next year.
Correct.
So that's where we're at. I know Ryan asked, originally they were saying through the end of June of next year. And Ryan and I met with Greg Butters, who's the county CEO, and the deputy county CEO as well. And they agreed to extend it through the end of calendar year 2021. When I get to my point, I'll talk about and I'll make my suggestions on where we ought to go with this thing. So, okay. Anything else, Janelle?
Yes. One of my assignments is the Planning Commission. And this is something Christina and I have kind of brought up to Ryan. But last week at the Planning Commission meeting, there was a lot of upset residents about the size of the signage. Different cities have different requirements on how notice is posted for public hearings. And I would suggest that we do something maybe larger, more visible, maybe put in some guidelines about the height that it's posted at, so that it's not down on the ground, getting covered with snow and weeds and different things. And I, as I've talked to Ryan about it, it sounds like it's just an internal thing. We don't really have to make an ordinance or resolution for, but it's just something that we can ask the city staff to do a little differently.
Janelle, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So with the library, when you say they're thinking of doing something differently, like what?
Closing
The county?
Yeah.
They just aren't sure that it's serving the residents of the county. Maybe the mayor is going to speak to that more. But as far as who it's actually serving, it's us. It's the residents of Providence who are actually being served by the library. So and the other municipalities are really having a minor involvement. There's a lot of other municipalities in the valley that have their own libraries, you know, Hiram, Wellsville, Mendon,
North Logan,
Smithfield has their own library. I mean, obviously Logan City has a gigantic library that residents pay, I think probably $100 a year to get a library card if you're a non-resident, to get a library card into Logan City. So those are kind of
the talk is of closing it as a county library.
That's my understanding.
No longer be funded by the county. The county has about $120,000 a year budget. About half of that is staff salaries and benefits. A little bit of history. The primary purpose of the county library was to operate the bookmobile. It was funded with federal monies. That went away. The county kept operating the library. I've seen, and I passed on to Janelle because she's on the library board, everything we've gotten from the county, their budget information. They also sent us information on who the library patrons are. I mean, it's roughly 90% is Providence residents. There are some scattered throughout. Obviously, there's more so with our sister cities, and that's Millville and River Heights. So that's where we're at. The city owns the building. The city has, do we pay the utilities on that, Scarlett?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so the $120,000 is over and above so the repair and maintenance that the city has absorbed, as well as the utilities. And Shane and his park staff have done any maintenance work on that library building. I don't know the history of the building. There's a downstairs area that we use for storage. As long as we're talking library, I think we ought to have a broader discussion. And that is about downtown Providence. And we can get into a long discussion about that. We have some historic structures in that area. We picked up and moved from the downtown area in the historic part of town, and now we're 2 blocks from the city limits. We have the Old Rock Church. The owner is a few years older than me, and that's pretty old. And I don't think his children have any interest in maintaining and operating the Old Rock Church in its current state. And if it were sold and operated as some other type of business operation, it would be significantly expensive to bring everything up to code. We have the tire market. We have the service station. We have the Watkins Printing Building. I think as long as we're talking about the library, we ought to talk long-term in terms of what our plans would be for the downtown area and how the library building fits into that, along with funding or not funding a library. That's my suggestion. Brent's been around longer than us, and he knows some more history of it. Well, one other thing I might add, there's some historic value to the elementary school and the bell that it's been there forever. Once upon a time, not too long ago, the school district came to the city and offered to give us the elementary school. And at the time, the council declined that. And at one time, the previous owner of the Old Rock Church came to the city and offered to donate it to the city. There's a story behind that as well. So anyway, I think my suggestion is that we're going to talk library and we're going to talk about funding the library. We ought to talk about the whole downtown area and what, if anything, we as the city council want to create future plans for. Just my opinion. I'd like you to weigh in on that, Brent. I know you've seen much more of that than the rest of us.
Well, as far as the library, I really would like to see some sort of revitalization of the downtown area. It is and I realize everything is shifted down to the highway, and that's where the revenues come from. But there is some historic value there. The library at one time was the post office before they built the new post office on the lake. Then the building was acquired, or it was given to us. We put an addition onto it. We got a lot of volunteerism, a lot of reasonable work to put the addition to the library. And then it went to the county library because of the bookmobile. There's, I've been under the floor of the tire store and seen the coal receipts and seen old cases where they had goods and services in it. But that has become a productive building. As far as I know, people are renting it and it's doing quite well and doing okay. I would certainly like to see some revitalization. I remember when Watkins was there and it was doing very well. And of course they moved to a different location. I think it would take maybe a citizens committee along with some council people and see what people would like to do with that downtown area, see what we'd like to see happen. Then how we go about accomplishing that is something we'd have to give a lot of consideration to. But I just hate to see it deteriorate and become, pretty much a blight area. That's my thoughts.
One other thing I might mention on the southeast corner of the Center Street and Main Street intersection, there's a monument there. And the committee that put that whole project together and went out and raised funds and built that out still has $14,000 in funds available. Now, I don't know what they could spend it on or can't, but Kathleen Alder has that money and she's looking for legitimate things to do with it. And I don't know, maybe it would fund a study or some research or something, just something to throw out. Anyway, that's my suggestion. I agree with Brent. I think there ought to be something done to the historic and maintain the historic value of the downtown area.
Is that a committee that you could put together, Mayor? Or like, is that?
Well, we certainly could. I like the idea of, and maybe this isn't the right term, a master plan. If we come up with something for the downtown area, I mean, maybe we would have a master plan. Some of the buildings are problematic. The service station may have environmental issues. The Watkins building is a hodgepodge of different buildings. It's 3 parcel numbers if you look on the GIS map, and there are different. One owner has 2 parcels and another owner uses it to store his mattresses. It's the My Mattress guy. I can't remember his first name. Last name is Lenhart, Ryan Lenhart, who does the commercials, but he uses that to store for storage as a warehouse.
Well, the school itself seems like a puzzle put together of, we could do a through the generations school walkthrough.
Anyway, there's a lot to talk about. We don't have time tonight. I agree that there ought to be a committee to come up with ideas. I think Kathleen, I think Brent and other people, I think Ralph should be on a committee to talk about it. Ralph told me at one time that he made an offer on the 2 homes on the south side of where the church is on the east side of Main Street. He wanted to put in a car museum. And there people came in and bid higher. I don't know if you know Ralph. Ralph, I don't know how many he has, 34, 35 vintage cars on his property now. And he keeps saying he's going to sell some because he keeps bringing in more cars to restore. Anyway, so that's all for a further discussion. I'll send a note out tomorrow asking who might be interested in having an initial discussion about forming a committee.
So Mayor,
Yes.
that's exactly the kind of stuff that the Historic Preservation Commission should be doing. So maybe that's where you need to start.
Scarlett.
Pardon?
You won't disagreement from me on that.
Yeah. So, but it's this great discussion, but it's not on the agenda. So maybe put it on a future agenda and have a really in-depth discussion.
Right. Yeah, I was saying it's more in-depth than we can get into tonight, so. Okay.
Mayor, maybe you and I can meet with the Historical Preservation and Scarlett and whoever else is interested, maybe meet with them and have a meeting to see where they're at on anything that way.
Well, I would suggest that the Historic Preservation Commission appoint a committee and ask for volunteers.
There
And
you go.
report back to the Historic Preservation Commission. Would that work, Scarlett?
Yeah, I think that the Historic Preservation Commission working with you, and when it comes to extending invitations to serve on a committee, sometimes that coming from a mayor or a council member carries a little bit more weight than from even a Historic Preservation Commission member. But I think starting there would fall right in line with the state guidelines of what their purpose is. So.
Good. Maybe we can light a fire under them.
Yeah.
So Scarlett, when is their next meeting? Have they already had it this month?
Actually, because of COVID, they haven't been meeting. The project that they were working on was put on hold because of some of the things up at Utah State that got put on hold. And so their next meeting will be in January.
So I'm not going to wait until January. So Howard's still the chair?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a vice chair or not really?
I don't recall. I'll have to look in my notes to see who it is.
So the members besides Howard are
West.
Pat Perry,
Gail Trowbridge,
oh, yeah,
West Bitters,
West Bitters,
and
yeah, the new lady.
yeah, I just went completely blank.
Blank, I can't remember. Okay, I will contact them by email and just tell them we have put this in their lap.
Okay.
Okay.
Mayor, can I finish up?
Sure. Good.
So the other issue is water. I understand that the Spring Creek Water Company is postponing their annual meeting due to COVID. Is that right, Brent?
Yes, there's no place for us to meet, and a lot of our people are not on the internet. We've come up with a proposed solution to that, but it does shove our meeting back to March. Now, in doing so, we still have on our agenda to do all these things that we've talked about, and it gives us more time. What we're going to do is send out a mailer, and those people who will use the internet, we're going to use the internet to let them ask questions and be able to present our position and try and help them resolve issues during the next time frame here, December and so forth. And then those people who do not have the internet, we're going to ask them to call us directly with their questions, concerns. We're going to try and educate them, bring them up to speed. But as far as the only thing, the council, the board of directors have accepted the agreement. The only thing is that item number 3, which we need to get taken care of. Now, we're holding just a little bit because Craig and George are working out the details of the change application. We talked with George last night, Ralph and I, and there was a couple things Craig had put in there, and George and he are working those out. As soon as they're resolved and we have a completed change application and we've got the agreement before them, and that's out on our website, then we are going to try and work with the members to bring them to the understanding so that they will vote to make that change on item 3 of the agreement. But it will be March, and I don't know what's going to happen by March. That's our concern. And there's no place we can meet. We can't meet with the governor's mandate, so we're kind of in a bad spot.
Blacksmith Fork Water Company is in the same situation. They are also, from my understanding, postponing their annual meeting. So I will let you know when I know more about that. Also, they already sent out their ballots for their election, and I must have missed something on how I was supposed to get on that, because Kathleen told me she was going to write me in, but I'm not really sure how that's going to work out.
We own water shares and I never got a ballot.
In Blacksmith Fork?
Oh, no, I thought you were talking about Spring Creek. Sorry.
Yeah, Blacksmith Fork. So
we have Blacksmith Fork shares. We got a ballot and Janelle's name was not on it. I wrote her name in. Kathleen Alder is on their board. The letter that went out along with the bill said they would not be having a meeting at all. And John Hubbard has permanently resigned, and I spoke to him about it personally. He's done. John's done quite a bit to keep that company afloat. But that's where things are at. I'm concerned, like Brent is this the new normal? And how do we operate going forward and get things done and get things agreed to?
Yeah.
So I'll make a note to talk to Kathleen about Spring Creek. I mean, Blacksmith
Fork. Okay. And just to circle back to the signage, what do we need to do there, Ryan, to get some changes made on the Planning Commission signage?
Yeah, our first step is we have some A-frame signs that we've used for concerts in the park. They're weighted, they're a bit more sturdy. Initially, that sign was placed on a H-frame wire, as my understanding, and so it was put up there. Those are like campaign signs, and the size of the sign is bigger than what it came across in the meeting. But we'll put it on. We'll have it printed, put it on that size, make it more visible. If that doesn't work, or we need to do something else, the next step would be to have the developer or the applicant put a sign on their property. And as Christine has sent out, Nibley has a sign ordinance that requires for certain things, and what they would do. But the first step is we'll put out at the A-frame signs. They're more noticeable than some of these others, and so we'll try that one for this next one, and we hope that it will help. And then if we need to, go ahead.
Are the A-frame signs movable? Like they're not fixed, are they?
Yeah, they're movable.
So could they blow over with storms?
They're weighted with sand in them, so they have a weight to them. So they're a much heavier sign than you'd find with just these wire signs.
Okay. So what size of sign were you thinking that you were wanting to change to?
I think the A-frame fits. I'd have to remember, and I don't know whether Rob or Scarlett know this off, but I think they're 2 foot by 3 foot signs, if I'm not mistaken, but I'd have to go and double check, but I think that's what they are. If you go to the developer and what Nibley has, they're 4 by 4, but they're put in by the developer and installed that way. Keep in mind, just for the council's sake, this signage, and for this particular hearing, signage wasn't required in either ordinance, city, or state code. We put it out to give notice for various things, but it was one of those attempts to try to do something more, and maybe didn't come across as the extra that we hoped it to be.
Well, I know we had the same complaints when there was that rezone up in the Highlands, just a small sign kind of on a side of the road that nobody really traveled. The case that we've got down here is it's a smaller sign on a busy road that's really hard for someone to even pull over and look at because there's not really shoulder right there. It's right off that intersection. So it just creates, anyway, I just think we need to, what's it called? To just be extra vigilant in posting and publishing, and absolutely go the extra mile, even if we already did. I mean, we should always make sure everyone's aware of what's happening around them. Obviously aware.
Another thought I had on the posting, I know Scarlett mentioned in the Planning Commission meeting what is required by state code. Maybe it's just me, but I know state code requires that it's in the newspaper, but I just don't really know how many people take the newspaper and look for that kind of stuff. I think it should be posted on our social media accounts. You mentioned it was posted on the website. We talked about possibly putting it out in the pipeline, that there's a public hearing. Any of those ideas I think would be worth considering.
Yeah. The one thing that the state has established and would recommend that if you haven't signed up that you would, the public meeting notice website is, you can subscribe to that site by entity and by committee. That is the state's avenue. They require all to be done that way. It is one that does give all the information. And instead of a sign that just gives, notice and date, that one gives a lot. We can do a lot more through the public notice. I agree. Newspapers are getting less Here you have a newspaper that prints 3 days a week. I came from a place that had it 1 day a week, 3 days a month. I came from a place that had it once or 3 days a week. Came from a place that had one publishment a week. And now with the Deseret News and the Tribune reducing their circulation, I think newspapers will get less and less, but the state has held to their public meeting notice website, and it sends it out. It sends it in an email. If you haven't, I can send you out a link there. But we will use our A-frames. We'll do our effort. But if you want, as a council, if you want to adopt an ordinance to establish the developer or applicant to put up a sign, the next step you would need to do is determine for what actions. Do you want it for zoning? Do you want it for a lot split? Do you want it for, that would be one of the next things to discuss, and we'd have to put it on the agenda. But at that point, you'd really want to come back and say, you know, we have Kay Holman that was at Planning Commission as well. A simple lot, well, not simple, but a lot split you would think would be simple. Do you want a 4 foot by 4 foot sign on a lot that's just being split? Or do you want it for zoning? When it changes zoning, do you want it? At that point, that would be another question the council should be ready and prepared once we go to an ordinance, is what application do you need it? Is it subdivisions? Is it zoning? Is it? So anyway.
We should have a discussion item.
My recommendation on that is that you think about that as legislative items such as zoning and annexation. Subdivisions are administrative. We may not like the way that subdivision is designed, but if it meets our ordinance, the Planning Commission has to approve that. And so to invite comment on that is sometimes frustrating to the people, because it's like when somebody asks you your opinion and you give it and they don't acknowledge it at all. So I think if you're going to, if you want to have signage out there, I think that's fine. But I do think it ought to be, you ought to stick with legislative items that you really do have some say one way or the other, whether it's going to be able to pass or not.
I agree with that, Scarlett. Nibley's just specifically does for subdivisions as well, but I agree with you. I would stick to legislative items and not administrative. But that's a discussion the council really ought to have that way. But I agree with Scarlett that way.
So can we put that on our next meeting for a discussion, or can we just bring that ordinance? Like Scarlett says, I think that's right. Those are the things that need to be noticed by the developer. Let's put them in charge of a 4x4 sign.
I think
We
that's
can
a
work
good
on
idea.
drafting an ordinance and bring it for discussion at next meeting if you'd like.
That would be great, I think.
Good.
Anybody else?
Yeah, that would be nice.
Okay, let me just point of clarification so that we follow the state code. That's a land use ordinance. Really ought to go to Planning Commission quickly first before it comes back for you guys to do your final thing. So
Great.
how about we, as staff, we draft something, we get it on the Planning Commission agenda, and then it gets to you probably in January.
Whatever, do it.
Okay, I agree with that, Scarlett.
Janelle, I see you've muted, so I guess you're done.
Yep, I'm done. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. Christina, you're up.
I don't have anything.
Okay. And then Josh is hiding somewhere.
He's there.
Josh,
I'm not hiding.
there we go.
I just need to speak. Quick things. I can't remember if I mentioned this last time, but about a month ago or so, I met with Kendra Perry. She's the executive director at the Stokes Nature Center. She reached out to me. I think it would be very good to get her involved with the Trails and Park Planning Group at this point in time and talk about how Stokes can integrate educational components into that. I just think of what Janelle said, that we need a library, and I can't help but think nature is one of our greatest libraries. You know, and if we can get kids involved and learning and we try to come up with an educational plan as we talk about our parks, that would be good. And they're a not-profit organization assigned just to this area, to Cache Valley, and they work with cities like Nibley and others. So I just Ryan, to maybe put that out there to that committee, who's ever that, to maybe inviting her and hearing some of the ideas that she has regarding the plans that we have. The other thing,
send her information to me, Josh.
I will. The other thing I wanted to mention, well, I'm on the Chamber of Commerce plans. We continue to have canceled monthly luncheons there. I don't think any of those go on with COVID. They keep planning them, but they keep getting canceled. The other thing I wanted to ask you, maybe Ryan, about was this. The EDC Utah is starting this development ready communities training and overview. And I know the discussion we had last month was really, really good as we talked about commercial property development and residential. And their courses just started this month, and they're 1 or 2 a month between now and June. Ryan, do you have any experience with anybody going through that or going through their certification to see how we might get additional training to be more development ready?
I have taken some of the trainings. I haven't got it there, but I know that we can get that. It might be good for you and I to have a sit-down discussion of a few of what's being proposed and planned, so that we can make sure what your thoughts are and where.
Great.
So if you have
I just feel like breaking news when we were in this meeting, the Winco's coming to Cache Valley. They're going in where Shopko was in Logan. I think there was rumors of a Target. I don't think that's been confirmed. I think those are just wishful rumors. The Target is, yeah. But it does bring that question that, unless we try to kind of get out in front of this and be proactive, and I think, this RDC through EDC Utah would be helpful. I don't want to miss those opportunities to add a few more assets or resources to this side of the valley. And it'd be nice to have in Providence. I don't care too much if they're Nibley or Millville or wherever, but I feel like there's a lot going on the other side of the town, and it just doesn't serve our residents well because we have to travel so far to access some of those services. Like the Chick-fil-A, by the way, which opened back up and had seen a line. I have never seen a line like this.
Well, and
anywhere.
how's the Winco going to function with the Chick-fil-A line, Josh?
I had no idea. The Chick-fil-A line went all the way down the road. It was like a sweet roll. It just kept wrapping around in the parking lot. So, but there's lots of opportunity down here, and look at all the great residents we have moving into Providence. I think we just need the tools to go ahead and attract those businesses, whether that's incentives we offer as a city or whatever. So I would like to take those courses, Ryan. I'm interested in that, and maybe you and I can have a call and discuss how we can work collaboratively on that piece of it. So
absolutely, we have been approached on a few of the different pieces. I think there is some initial discussions being had on different pieces of property. I don't know that they're ready for discussion in an open council meeting, but I do think, because I'm not sure where the landowners are at, not where the city's at, but where the landowners at. But I think there is a lot of interest, more than you might think, and some of those that are development ready don't have much interest in their community. We do have interest, and there is some of that's potential. So
that's it for me, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, you bet.
Can I just say something about economic development, Mayor?
Sure, go ahead,
I mentioned this to Ryan, and I was gonna reach out to Josh about it. I really would like to kind of have a commercial development discussion on what the vision is for the city. I know that the commercial highway district, different commercial properties keep coming up for rezone within the city. And I feel like I would feel more comfortable if we'd had kind of some vision discussions for the city about what we're trying to draw to the city, so that we can make those zoning decisions kind of with some perspective. So I don't know if that would be a training or maybe attending this certification that Josh has mentioned, but I would really like for myself more training and discussion on economic development, so that I feel comfortable when things come before the city to make adjustments to.
I think that you and I and Josh ought to attend that community ready training. Let's find when that is, and do that. I think that would be good for you, Janelle, and for us as a group, as you're interested.
I'll send out that schedule to the three of us then via email,
Okay.
and I think it's Alan Rindelsbacher, I think, is the coordinator for that, and we can get involved. So
Are they online classes like
they're
Zoom?
online. Yeah, they're online.
I think it would be good for all of us to know. I mean, we're trying to understand our city and what's out there and what we can do for our city. Maybe some are not, but I have an interest in that.
Great.
Can I make a suggestion? And this kind of follows on to what I think Janelle's concern is. And let's just start with a simple one. The west side of the highway is Providence, all the way to Blackhawk Townhomes. We know and have had discussions with the property owners. There really ought to be a master plan of some form for that side of the highway. The north end of it, there's a very narrow strip that's Logan. But UDOT is going to limit the access to the highway, and there really ought to be, and if you're coming out of Walmart, the south exit, if you look straight ahead, that's Providence, and we really need access through there. But that whole area should have a master plan of some sort to answer your questions about where are we going with all this. I'd like to, I commented that the area that we consider the commercial part now, which is anchored by Macy's, that whole area, and not just Alder Square, to me should have had a master plan. I do know that there were members of the public who created a plan for the downtown area, but I don't know whether the council adopted it or not. Blake Parker gave me all the materials he had, but what got built and what the committee came up with were not the same thing. So when we look at the development both sides of Gateway Drive, in this day and age, as we see going on right now, to me, I don't like to look at just a top down, here's a developer, here's a plot of land. I look at it and say, how does it fit with everything else? And that's why I'm saying I wish we'd had a master plan for the east side of the highway, but now I'm saying we really ought to give some thought to the west side and how that's all going to lay out. So whether a Target comes to town or not, at least they see that we as a city have our act together and we have thought this thing through and how everything's going to fit together. Then they may feel more comfortable bringing their business to our city because they know we've got a plan and they know how it's going to positively impact the business that they want to bring to Providence. That's my suggestion on that. And then to the south of 1700 South, that's up in the air. Let me contrast where we are. I mean, I don't think we do a great job bringing economic development to the city. We don't have a plan. Millville has all kinds of property in the city. They've annexed, zoned commercial, and how much commercial business does Millville have? Almost zero.
No, but they have no incentives. They have no infrastructure. They don't have anything. So
here's let me make it kind of even more weird. They came up with a new zone. It's called a town center zone. And it's kind of like a wish list of all the things they'd like to have in a town center. But to your point, Josh, they haven't done the right things to put the things in place to attract commercial retail development. Like they'd love to have the sales tax revenue, but there's more to it than that. It's one thing to attract business and have conversations with people you'd like to have, like whether it's a Target or In-N-Out Burger or Whole Foods or something like that. It's another thing to actually have them say Providence is where we want to be.
Yeah, so I think Janelle's right. I think we need a vision and a master plan, and then I think we need the tools and training to put together the appropriate incentives to bring them here. Without those things, nothing will happen.
Okay.
Do we put together a plan and then do we actively seek businesses that we feel like would fit our plan?
We can. Let me reach out to Alan Rindelsbacher and see if he has a leakage analysis, because that might be something helpful. What does our area spend money on and what would they like? So that might be a avenue to start. We can do an economic development master plan. I did do one of those with Roosevelt as part of their master plan set. We are working on a number of them. And I'd like to make sure we get some of these wrapped up as we work into the next ones. But yeah, we definitely can do a master plan if that's what we want.
Okay.
Well, I think we need it. I think we need some help. If we're going to, the land will continue to be, I mean, the houses are coming, and yeah, as was said, we're being encroached upon our commercial property to put homes. And if we don't have a plan, then what do? We just roll over and give it up. So I think we need to move forward with some kind of economic development plan.
I think you've been appointed, Ryan.
I would be happy to. I just need to make sure that we modify the budget so I can afford to make sure I can get the right plan in place. But I think it's important. So.
Okay, we'll talk further. Josh, anything else?
That's
I
it.
see you're
Thank you.
muted. You must be done.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm done. Thanks.
All right, I have a few things here. We already covered the library, the parks, amazing. We had a lot of good comments, dialogue, discussion. As a master plan, I think is really healthy. The transportation master plan, it's not as far along, but we put a lot of dialogue and discussion into that. I submitted my comments to Ryan. I know there's a lot of issues that we have with its current draft, its current state. We're working hard on it, putting a lot of time and effort into it. The fiber committee, amazing. First of all, Strata, as a matter of business practice, is not a company that builds out fiber systems for municipal governments. For the most part, there isn't much of that really goes on. So we've gotten into some of the details of our agreements with them, and we've kind of thrown them for a loop. There've been some head scratchers. Janelle, you probably heard about it at home. And we've really pushed back on some things and forced them to think. And I think once we're got through all this, we'll have something that's very healthy and for both sides. So fiber is going along well, but still a lot of work, a lot of details, and we're not getting into just the weeds, but how we plan to operate and have this agreement between our government, municipal government, and Strata as a contractor. The COG, the Council on Governments, meets next Monday. And I think I mentioned this before, that the whole group, the mayors, the staff, agreed that all of the grant applications were very well done. They're very worthy projects. The big elephant is Logan City, 3.2 million out of $5.5 million available. And the current ranking does not fund the Providence project. That may change Monday. It may not change. However, I've had some discussions with the people at the county and the fellow who's a COG chair right now. I'm the vice chair. Then that's Jeff Young of Richmond. There's a couple other funding possibilities that it's the umbrella organization is CMPO, the Cash Metropolitan Planning over transit. There's two alternatives for funding that we're discussing. Some of it's federal money that are potential for funding our project on 100 South. So that's where that's at. I'll have more information after Monday's meeting, and that's the 23rd. One other thing I did want to mention, I have in the past extended the offer to the council if they wanted to contribute to the newsletter. Josh submitted an article that I enthusiastically endorsed. He talks about dogs loose, and irresponsible pet owners, and any other council member that wants to submit, more than welcome to. Previous council has done that as well. So any of you have any ideas for an article, I'm more than happy to put things in the newsletter. Okay. On that note, I'm done. If anybody else has any comments or questions, or if not, I'll entertain a motion, because we don't have an executive session planned that I know of.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
All right, motion from Council Member Paulson. Do I have a second to adjourn?
Second.
Second from
Kirk.
Council Member Kirk. I didn't see you lit up. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody not want to adjourn? Signify by saying nay. Hearing none, we're adjourned. Thank you all.
Have a nice night.
Stay
Have a
warm.
good Thanksgiving, everyone.
My turkey is defrosting as we speak.
My turkey has COVID.